Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Nerdthusiast podcast. My name is Frank. I'm joined by my good friend Wes over here on the other side. How are you, Wes?
I'm good, my friend. How are you, Frank?
Excellent, excellent. Um, it's been a little bit on a time frame for us to get a little music back up here, but we're going to do it with a great start, in my opinion. We're going to go over the history of funk. Wes and I put together some stuff that should be pretty interesting, and hopefully you like it. So let's jump right into it.
Okay, let's get it.
Let's do it. So first off, I mean, I know he was known as the Godfather of Soul, but in my opinion, James Brown has to be the first person that comes to mind, at least in my mind, from a funk standpoint. He kind of a little bit of a crossover. I guess he had blues in him, a little bit of everything, but definitely somebody who crossed over to a lot of different genres of music, in my opinion.
Oh, I agree. I agree. I mean, when you say, funk, the first person that usually pops to mind is George Brown, is James Brown.
Yeah, and
It's
he had
and he had a huge crossover because he didn't just kind of play music for like one particular crowd. It was for
true.
everybody. It was for
Yeah,
everybody.
yeah, if you see people that are fans of his, you always see just such a unique group. I guess an
Mhm.
eclectic group, as I like to say, of people that like that type of music. Obviously, having 59 studio albums and 15 live albums, he was
Mm.
around and producing music and singing music for such a long time. So that obviously the length there too helps with the crossover from different genres.
59. Man, that's like he put out a album every 6 months.
That's amazing. Yeah, when I looked up, I did obviously didn't know that stat, and I looked it up. I was like, wow. And then I think there was also some albums he did for different scores for
Mhm.
movies as well that aren't even included in that. So, obviously, just a ton of music overall. Um, and I know even though he started earlier, I guess his funk songs were more in the early '70s. We added a couple to our playlist, Super Bad and Sex Machine.
Mhm.
Um, Sex Machine, one of my favorite songs. I have the album here, the original vinyl, which is kind of cool. It's basically a bunch of naked ladies spelled out on the album cover. Yeah, it's kind of, I don't have it in front of me, but maybe we will pop it up there. But kind of a cool old school album cover for especially kind of unique back in that at that time.
That's funny. Okay, that's kind of cool. Interesting.
Yeah. Yep. And one of the biggest funketeers, we can call him, to come out of James Brown was the bass player for James Brown, the one and only Bootsy Collins, who started Bootsy's Rubber Band. Such a great name, one of my favorite names of all time
Mm.
as far as group names. Um, you know,
It's funny because like I didn't really like I this like Bootsy when he kind of did his thing. I was like really too young to like appreciate it. But I lived in a house. My uncle, who's like older, 10 years older than me, like lived with us, so he would play a lot of that stuff. And I still didn't realize who Bootsy was, but I remember his flashiness. I remember
absolutely.
the big glasses and
The
the big
star
shoes
glasses, yeah,
and like all the gemstones on his outfit. It was like, so I remember him as being a visual representation of music, but I
absolutely.
didn't come to like really know Bootsy until like way later.
Yeah, well, where I grew up, there was definitely a lot of interest in funk. I do have the Bootsy's Rubber Band album,
Mhm.
where if you open it up, there's a cutout and take out the actual paper sunglasses as part of the album cover. So
uh,
it's kind of cool. It's again kind of unique at the time, still unique in my opinion. I mean, I never saw anything like that. But the creativity and you know th- just all around like pizzazz and showmanship.
mhm.
His guitar, if I remember, was kind of unique as well. But coming from James Brown, obviously with that background, helped him to slide right into the funk scene. Um,
Oh, definitely. But you know what? It's funny because it's like when he left. and kind of did his own thing after separating from James Brown, his sound I felt changed.
Oh,
I felt
absolutely. Oh,
I felt
definitely
Bootsy
different.
like is really like definitive funk. Um,
Agreed. Agreed.
oh yeah.
Yeah, and on our playlist we have Bootzilla, which probably the most famous song that he did or his band did. And it starts out with "Yabba Dabba Doozer Mama." You know, what a great opening line, right? Such a classic. Um, then we come to probably, I would say, the biggest name in funk history. Uh, the man, myth, legend, who's still performing to this day, George Clinton, the amazing George Clinton. I mean, what can you say about him? He's done it all in the funk world.
I really want to say I want to call him the Godfather of funk.
I think that's fair. I think we can.
You
It's
know,
our podcast. We can absolutely, and I agree with you. By the way, like I said, others may have been before him a little bit, but he, in my opinion, too, is would be considered the Godfather of funk. We're going to anoint him that anyway. But Bootsy, or I'm sorry, not Bootsy, but George Clinton started the group Parliament,
mhm,
and I had learned a little bit about some groups that were before that. I guess, there was a group called the Parliaments that he was involved with. Not quite as much of the funk sound, a little bit, but then Parliament eventually, I'm gonna say, kind of morphed into Funkadelic. You had two separate groups at the same time
mhm.
that had mostly the same people in the groups doing different albums under both names, which I don't know of any other time in music history, at least that I know of, that's happened. But it was definitely kind of a unique thing in the '70s, primarily.
Now I'm just kind of wondering what was the purpose of like
I,
having
I have no idea.
because for the longest time again because we're starting to get into like the area like I was very familiar with like George Clinton because I would hear his songs on the radio. Flashlight played, all
Absolutely.
on every radio station. Knee Deep played on every radio station. Um, what the Mothership Connection played on just about every
Yep.
radio station in New York.
One
So
Nation Under a Groove.
that yeah, you put on One Nation Under a Groove at a party, you
That
were.
was yeah, that was just like a over the top song, and yeah,
Mhm,
I like Knee Deep myself. I mean, that was probably one of my favorite funkadelic songs.
mhm.
But yeah, Mothership Connection. I heard it on one of the XM channels the other day, and I was like, wow, still going strong. Um,
Yeah, but it's just like, I always thought Parliament Funkadelic was like one group, even though technically it was.
yeah,
Because when you talk to someone about George Clinton or Parliament, they would say it as this one group, Parliament Funkadelic.
yeah.
But, it was two separate
And
groups.
yeah, and like I have no idea why he did that or they did that. I don't know if there was a specific reason or not. I never really looked into it, but either way, it was just twice the
We
music and
There we
twice
go.
the fun.
We got good music either way.
Absolutely,
Either way.
absolutely, absolutely. Um, another band that came along mid '70s, a group of brothers called the Isley Brothers. In my opinion, and I have some of their records as well. Some some heavier funk, more like a rock funk, I guess. Maybe because of the strength of the bass, the strength of the drums. I don't know. It just seemed like a harder, not. I don't know. It's hard to explain, but to me, they were a different type of funk. Um, you know, "It's a Disco Night" was a big hit for them. As far
Mhm,
as I don't even know if we put that on the list or not. I really don't remember. No, I don't think we did. But anyway, one of my favorite songs, and it was kind of it's called a disco night, but it was anything but a disco sound in my opinion. It was just harder and funkier. We put on the list the Pride, which
mhm.
kind of pretty solid tune right there as well. Um,
Because okay, so I have to go back and take a listen. To was it Disco Night? You said
It's a Disco Night
Let's Go Disco
is
Night.
on
Okay.
I think it's the Go For Your Guns double album, if I'm not mistaken. I think it's on that. It's called It's a Disco Night, but it's just got just a heavy, heavy
Huh.
jam and bass, and yeah. But that was, I don't want to say it was big in the clubs because that wouldn't be right. It was more bigger on the radio stations a little bit.
Okay.
But like I said, for the name of the song, it's more of a funk sound for sure.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I definitely have to go back and take a listen to it because I know, when you and I were talking and kind of just, who we're gonna add, and with the Isley Brothers. Okay, so I don't know the Isley Brothers for funk at all, at all. So when you say the Isley Brothers, the first thing that comes to mind is soul, is more soul
Yeah,
music.
and
They
absolutely.
got their slow ballads and stuff like that, and I'm like, Isley Brothers funk, really?
Yeah, yeah.
So
Like I'm telling you, check out that, but check out the Pride. I mean, the
I
Pride.
did listen. I do know the Pride.
Yeah.
I do know they have like one or two like funk songs, but like I said, out of the whole, I was like, hmm, I never would consider them funk. But
Yeah, and
okay.
listen, I mean, like you said, I mean, I don't think all of their music is fits in the category, but in my opinion, they
Mm,
definitely hit some highs with some of their funkier tunes. But yeah, I mean, again, they had some great ballads that they had,
yeah.
and they crossed over a few different types of music, as well. And I always appreciated groups like that that weren't a one lane kind of group
Hmm.
or artist. It's nice to hear when they can do some different kinds of things, and that's awesome.
Right, because I know, like current, coming to, I guess, the late '70s, '80s, they were still popular, but again, I know them more with their bass, like between the sheets and stuff like that, like their soulful
Yep,
side.
definitely, definitely. Moving on into the late '70s. The man who had his music called the punk funk, Mr. Rick James. Kind of a one of a kind, unique artist. Had some huge success in the dance hit worlds with "Give It to Me, Baby" and "Super
Hmm.
Freak." Um, but and this is probably one of my all-time favorite songs. Period. "You and I," Rick
Yes,
James, classic,
yes,
one of the best.
yes.
Just love that song. Just love that song.
I agree. I agree. You say Rick James. I mean, the average person, you say Rick James, they come up with Super Freak, and Super Freak
Yeah,
is a great song. But
absolutely.
you and I,
"You and I"
mm-mm,
was the best,
that was
in
it,
my
man.
and to top it off, he sang with, and you talked about ballads. I love, my favorite female singer of all time is Tina Marie. Okay,
So
and
is my wife.
the ballads of Rick James and Tina Marie. Um, again, some of my favorite songs. Just the little tiny girl that she was belting out, and
Hmm.
Rick had a strong voice. Like, he had a funk and the style to his music and all, but he had a very powerful voice. Like, people don't
Hmm.
always talk about that. There's some great singers that don't have powerful voices, but he had a strong voice, and that really comes out on some of the ballads. Again, they weren't in the funk part, but I appreciated his music a lot.
I don't know, maybe because I think of like when you talk about Rick James and his ballads. I think of, well, I don't know if this is a ballad, but Mary Jane. Mary Jane was a slow groove, but it was funky as I don't know what.
Yeah, I mean, I don't consider that a ballad. Me personally,
But it was a slow groove. It definitely had a slow
yeah,
groove to it.
yeah, definitely. Oh yeah, it was a slow groove and it had a nice, you know,
Nice bass line. I was like,
basically, yeah,
"Oh,
everything
this is
about it.
hitting."
Yeah, my favorite was "Fire and Desire." Um, that to me was more of a ballad. Rick James and
Yes,
Tina Marie
yes.
going back and forth. That was a classic. There was a few more. "Happy" was one of them. On That might have been on the album with "Super Freak" and "Give It to Me,
Mhm, mhm,
Baby."
mhm.
But like I said, "Fire and Desire" was my favorite. So and Now I'm going to step aside a little bit because we're moving into your main man here. So I'm going to defer, even though I'm a huge fan. Um, but I know how much, and we've done some Prince
Mhm.
podcasts. We're going to talk about Prince. So I'm going to turn this one over to you and let you run with this because I know how big of a Prince fan and Prince follower and how much Prince knowledge you have. So
Yeah. Oh man, now we're getting into my era. But yeah, Prince. And when we talk about Prince, we say that he was a musical genius. He played all his own instruments. He played 27 different instruments.
yeah,
His first album, he did everything, all the background vocals, the lead vocals, all the instruments himself, and it blew Warner Brothers away, and they gave
and,
him a record deal.
and he was like what 18, 19 years old at the time, somewhere around there, right?
Yep, 17.
Yeah, 17. So I
17.
mean,
Yeah.
at that age to be able to do that, like you see musicians who learn stuff along the way,
Hmm.
but here's a kid basically who learned all this stuff at such an early age and went back and did all the tracks himself. Yeah, it's just amazing.
Yeah, because he came out in '78, so he was like 20 when his first album actually came out. So yeah, it's just amazing to see someone that talented so young. But he was, and I remember him telling Warner Brothers he didn't want to. They said he told them don't make him black, because he didn't want to appeal
Really?
just to one
Right.
category of people. He wanted to appeal to everybody. But as he got older, his music kind of took on a form of its own, and he became like funky. And George
So,
Clinton was a huge influence on him, huge influence. And and it was like at that point when Prince started to get more into the funk side of things, I kind of went backwards and really took a look at funk music as a whole. And that's when I kind of started going back and listening to like old George Clinton and like Bootsy, stuff like that. So
oh
it
wow, all right, that's interesting. That pushed you back
yeah,
to check
it
out the
did.
old funk. Yeah, no,
It really did. Because like I heard it, I said, grown up in the household on the radio all the time, but it gave me a different appreciation after Prince came along.
gotcha. Wow,
You know.
that's cool. It's always nice when one song or group or artist brings you back to try out and check out something else, especially when they say, "Hey, I was influenced by this person." Oh, well,
Mhm.
let me go check it out. And sometimes you find something new to appreciate in the music world, for sure.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, definitely, definitely. Then you had the whole Rick James Prince thing because both of them were raunchy. it was like it
Oh,
was
absolutely. And at
it's just
that time, raunchy
who
wasn't as accepted as it is today in the music world,
exactly. It was like,
or
okay, who
even
who could be more raunchier?
yeah, exactly, for sure, for sure. Yeah, well, I snuck in one song before we continue with the Prince, but I
Mhm,
snuck in one of my favorite funk songs in between on our playlist. It's called "This Groove Is Bad" by Sky. Sky had a couple mainstream hits, but
mhm,
um, just again, it was like a hard, powerful funk tune. We snuck in there, but definitely let's get back to Prince. I know you're a huge fan of "Erotic City." Is I guess probably one of his biggest, funkiest tunes.
Oh, I love Erotic City. I heard that and I was like, oh my goodness, this is fantastic.
Yeah, yeah, and he was just I don't know. There's artists that strike me as just being unique in their
Mhm,
own little world, and
mhm,
whether you want to categorize their music or leave it out there and just let it show up wherever it shows up on,
mhm,
in the media or on radio stations back when we were growing up. I like that Prince was like that, and now you're telling me he wanted to appeal to everybody. I can absolutely see that
mhm.
because he would try different things.
Oh, he
Um,
was
you know,
definitely experimental.
he would definitely try stuff, and that's cool. Like and not everything worked, or some stuff worked a little bit later than maybe he thought. But
Mhm.
I give him credit for that.
Well, here's a question for you, being a DJ. So, what do you classify funk as? Like, what is funk?
Wow, to put it in a box, I don't know, man. I don't know. I'm definitely the type of person that has to, I'm a visual and a hearing person where
Mhm.
I have to hear it. In my opinion, I don't know.
Okay.
I mean, I'm not a musician, so I don't know how to play any instruments. So maybe I don't always necessarily pick up, oh, this instrument is
Mhm.
ahead of that instrument or something like that, or kind of setting the tone for the music. But with me, it's all about the sound.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know. That's a good question. It's hard for me to really answer that. I really don't know. Every song on this list is what I consider.
Okay, no, I got you. The reason I
Yeah.
asked is because at some point in Prince's career, he kept saying critics judged him because they said he lost his funk. He's not funky anymore.
Well,
So it's
again,
like,
guys change and or groups change, and people change their style of music. And listen, I don't have to. There's definitely musicians and artists that have changed, and I wasn't a fan of their change in music.
mhm,
That being said, Prince was not one of those. I liked his different styles for the most part, and I didn't have to put it in a category
mhm,
to determine whether I liked it or not. You know what I mean? I like it either I liked it or I didn't. It wasn't like, oh, I don't like it because it's X or Y or you know what I mean? So for me, I never, just like I said before with the um Isley Brothers song, you know, if you categorize it or not, I don't care. I like it. That's the way I
yeah,
look at things.
okay,
Now, I think these all these songs on our list are funk tunes or funky tunes.
mhm,
But that being said, I wasn't always worried about categorizing. Just like when I was DJing, if I was in a club, if it got people to dance, I'm all for it. You
yeah,
know, and there was stuff I didn't necessarily like or thought was that good, but you show up to work, and if it works, you go with it. Uh, you know,
definitely,
um,
definitely. But yeah,
but
we have a song on our playlist. A Prince George Clinton song that they did together, and it's called "We Can Funk," and it sounds it's an old Prince song that he did in '82, but redid it in 1990 with George Clinton, and it's funky. It's got that George Clinton groove to it. It's really
yeah,
good song.
yeah,
Really
and
good song.
and I know you added that on, and I'm not real familiar with it, and I'm definitely going to check it out.
Oh, definitely
For
check it
sure.
out.
I mean, and with Prince and George Clinton, two of my favorites, I have to. And quick story on Prince. The other Prince song we have in there was Housequake, which I think I might have told you this story before, but um, I was DJing at it was a club, but it was attached to a hotel
Hmm.
one night, and I was working there. I think every Friday or every Saturday for a little while, and it was close to my house, and they get a decent crowd, nothing crazy, but usually the weekend crowds were okay. So I remember one night DJing. I'm pretty sure it was a Saturday, and there must have been a wedding in the hotel, and the whole wedding party all fired up, probably half trash,
Hmm.
joined the club afterwards. Now the place start rocking, and this place was packed more than it normally was. So we're jamming. I'm having fun. Listen, I always enjoy DJing. When more people are having fun, I'm having more fun. The easier it is to play. And I forget what time they used to stay open, but the manager came up to me. He's like, "Hey, you okay to, I'll pay you. Okay to play later? Absolutely." So I played, I think, 2 hours longer than I normally would, and I was starting to run out of songs in my head.
Hmm.
Back then I'm carrying crates of records, so there's only so much you can bring with you, not like today where everything's on the computer and you have
Exactly.
access to, a gazillion songs. So I'm shuffling through trying to find something else that like I had I had pulled out all my big guns because people were on the floor and I knew what hit and I'd run with it. And I remember, and I forget what year it was, but I remember listening to Housequake at my house, like listening to the whole album because I had the album and
Mhm.
loving the funk of the song. And I'm like, all right, we're gonna give this a shot here. Like I end up I end up playing it. Oh my god, they loved it. I mean, maybe it was the alcohol and that it was 2 in the morning. I don't know, but they were jamming to that song, and I'll never forget that because that to me that was like I took a chance on something and got fortunate. And
Yeah.
but that I love the funk in that, just like it's a unique, like the beginning, with him talking, and I just such a cool unique song.
Oh, yeah, that's a cool story. Cool story.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. You got Prince, who's he was funky all the way to his end. But then we kind of go into like, I don't want to say a newer generation, Because Cool in the Gang definitely is not a new generation.
No, 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 absolutely not.
But Cool in the
Cool in
Gang
the
had
Gang.
had some funk too.
Yeah, no, I mean we put on there Jungle Boogie, stuff from the late '70s. Definitely had some other
Mhm.
tunes, and they crossed over. Obviously, they did a lot of dance music, but they definitely had a few funk songs. I liked Open Sesame too on the Saturday Night Fever album. That
Yes.
was like such a unique, cool song. I didn't put that on here, but that was and before we move into the newer school, the one other odd one off that I added in here, and I don't know if you ever heard of this song called Peanut Butter. You got to check it out. It's by
Mm-mm.
29 is the name of the group featuring Lenny
Okay.
White. Um, very bass oriented and just kind of like a fun, run with it kind of song, but definitely, definitely something like I said, a one off from a group that probably most people never heard of. And I stumbled upon the album. And I was like, oh, this is such a good song.
Huh.
So
Okay.
definitely something to try out. Um, then I think we get into what you were saying might be the newer school of funk to some degree.
Oh yeah, we got the introduction of Nelly.
Yep. And that
Country
song,
Grammar.
yep. And Hot in Here became massive. I mean,
It
um,
was huge.
yeah, I guess there was some lull in the funk world, I guess
Mhm.
in the '90s to some degree, like compared to the '70s and '80s. But this definitely was kind of a unique back to the funk roots sound to some degree.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people will consider Nelly hip hop, but his a lot of his songs definitely had a funk groove to them.
Yeah.
I definitely will agree with that.
Yeah, for sure. And then, and we talked about it already, but, sometimes it overlaps and that's okay. Like if you like the song, you like the song. You don't have to put it into a box to like it or say, hey, it needs to be categorized here, to like it. Then a couple more into the 2000s. Lil Jon, uh, for sure, came out with some stuff that definitely fit into the funk category.
Oh yeah, you know what? Little John just has a unique sound to himself.
Yeah.
It's is it his voice? Is it but his grooves? He definitely had his own sound, which I really appreciated Little John for.
Yeah, no, I again, yeah, I'm with you. I like people that have their own unique sound, do their own thing, even if it's a crossover. That's always good. And then I guess our ending Funketeer. Um, Again, he another guy, kind of a unique sound. Definitely hit, hit a home run with Uptown Funk. Bruno Mars became a huge success with that hit.
Yeah, okay. So I kind of have like a love hate thing with Bruno Mars.
And
it's
I'm
it-
not. I mean, I'm like an okay fan. I'm not like a huge fan.
no, exactly. I know his some of his songs, and yeah, he's great. But I kind of when they started to compare him to Prince, I kind of
Well, that's not
being
right.
a Prince fan, I was like, I
That's
kind
why.
of
All right, that's why you don't like him. Well,
I was like,
listen, he as long as he wasn't comparing himself to Prince, then that's okay. Like other people can try, but I'm with you. Like they're not in the same category. Um,
but
and
Uptown Funk. I have to say, really sounded like a Prince song.
it definitely. Oh, absolutely, definitely had that vibe to it.
Mhm.
Definitely had that vibe to it. Um, and the last song we had on our playlist, "Fly Is Me" by Bruno Mars, came out about 2 years ago.
Mhm.
Um, so I guess we're kind of maybe losing the funk edge. I don't know if there's too much around anymore, or who knows what the future might be.
I guess we'll see. It's sometimes we may have to go backwards to move forwards, if that makes
Yeah,
any sense. Just sitting here talking about funk and just I'm thinking of other bands that were really funky back in the day. Like my friend was a huge Level 42 fan,
Okay.
Uh,
Yeah, I
yeah,
remember Level
Level
42 back
42
in the
had
'80s.
some really funky stuff. So, they're still playing, and it's I find a lot of the newer generation goes backwards to kind of, I guess, see what it was, and pique an interest, and they take some of the old stuff to make it the new stuff, and
Right.
as long as it keeps it going, man, as long as it keeps funk going, I'm happy.
Agreed, agreed. And I mean, listen, we go back and we'll make this full circle here. We'll go back to when everybody starts sampling music. And of course,
Yeah,
the number one most sampled person was James Brown.
it was James Brown.
Yeah, so we go right back to that, and there's tons and tons of songs that were you know produced and made with some sampling from older James Brown songs, which is awesome. And it's weird because sometimes I'll be out and hear something that's more recent,
Mhm.
and I don't know music as well in the last 20 years or so. I'm more an historian, or you know studied or understood and played music back um, before that. But I hear songs and go, and I'm like, I'm like, man, that sounds like that song from. And sometimes it takes me a little bit to realize what song it
Yeah.
was. It's in my head. It's like, wait a minute, this sounds familiar. Then I hear like the chorus, or I hear something. I go, oh my god. And listen, it's hard because there's only so much, and you got to kind of reinvent things. And I think it's kind of cool when some of the newer artists are going back and listening and try to get some um, input and knowledge from what happened in the past to help make music better in the future. And that's a great thing.
Yeah,
Helping music move forward.
exactly. I love it. I love it.
So, all right. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed our show today. Please make sure to check us out on YouTube and follow us at nerdthusiast.com. Subscribe and ring the bell for notifications in YouTube for us. And we also have a Patreon uh, membership you can join for as low as $1 a month to help us out there. Wes, thank you so much for joining me.
Of course, my
Please tell
friend.
people, where you can be followed at on social media.
You can follow me on Instagram at Grendel5XBX. Or
All
you
right,
can catch me on our gaming channel at Nerdthusiast.com.
excellent, excellent. And you can find me on Twitter at FLD15. Um, and hopefully, like I said, come check out the rest of the stuff on Nerd Enthusiast. We have poker, we have music, we have gaming, we have collectibles, we have Disney. There's more. I know I'm forgetting more, but come check us out. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed the show, and we will see you soon. Take care.
Take care, guys.